Get your tickets now for the 23rd annual edition of the Outshine LGBTQ Plus Film Festival happening April 23rd to May 2nd. Don't miss our incredible grand opening drive-in event followed by 10 days of non-stop films from here and all around the world that you can watch at home. Watch trailers and get your tickets at OutshineFilm.com now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Victor Jimenez, your Executive Director for the Outshine LGBTQ Plus Film Festival. On behalf of the board and staff, welcome. We are presented by Gilead and Miami-Dade County, and we also exist with the support of you, our members, especially our Producer Circle members and our regular members. If you're not a member now, we encourage you to become a member and continue to support us. Today we have with us from See You Then, an incredible director and the co-writer of the film. Let's bring her in, Mari Walker. Mari,
hi, everyone. Hi.
First, I want to say I thoroughly enjoyed your film. It was just great. Not that I've seen every trans narrative film, trans documentary, but in my role, I've seen a lot of trans films, and yours was definitely different and unique, and it stood out to me. Like it caught my attention in a very good way. So, I mean, with that, tell us since you're the co-writer as well, tell us the impetus for the story, one, and then from the idea, like to get it to actually to the filming process, getting it filmed.
Yeah, totally. I've always wanted to make a film since I was in high school, and it was just a huge dream of mine. But my scope and my vision of what I wanted to tell was so grand and so large, especially as a trans filmmaker and a biracial filmmaker. It was really hard to get any financing for any film. So I kept on writing scripts that were smaller and smaller until I got to this place where I decided to write a chamber piece between these two characters. And at the time that I sort of conceptualized, like, okay, I just need to start with that, work with actors, really learn how to direct, since I've been working a lot in documentary and editing films, but not actually directing narrative. And at the time I was going through a lot. I was going through a lot of questions about what it means to be a woman, whether motherhood still was relevant or meant something to me. Was that still a goal in my life? How much of a lack of work-life balance I was struggling with at the time. And I think Kristen Uno, my co-writer, was struggling with some of the same issues. And she was living with me at the time, and I sort of forced her to write the script with me. And we sort of used it as a form of art therapy, and just sort of wrote out all of our feelings and our experiences onto the page. And then as we started working on it, the character started to come to life. The writing started to take on its own form, its own shape. And then you fell in love with the characters, and then you felt really bad destroying their life with this film. But we finished the script in, I would say, spring of 2019 was about the time when we had a script block, and then we went into the process of raising financing, which is definitely not easy, but we were able to do it through a crowd investment platform called WeFunder, which is a really great resource and a really great platform. And we were able to get financing for the film, and then sort of off we went to film it while still trying to raise funds for post-production. And then just as we finished filming, the pandemic hit. So it's been a very interesting experience trying to make the first film. I think like everybody's stories in making their first film is very unique because the circumstances that it takes to get there is just so different for every single person. But ours was long, but in the end, it was the first film that I was supposed to make, and I'm very grateful for it.
And a very good film. You created these great characters, and but then you also cast these great actors. Like, did you have the actors already in mind? Was it a basic casting process where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I got these actors? Like, how'd you find the actors?
Yeah. Well, Puya Maseni, I had seen in a short film back when my short swim was going through the festival run back in 2016, 2017. And I saw her in the short, and there's this, some actors possess, like they're almost like an emotional conduit. They're able to express emotions and channel emotions in a very specific way that's also universal. And I saw that in that short in Puya, and she was always sort of in the back of my mind as we started the casting process. We had reached out to some trans actresses who had been in some bigger things, and they passed on it. But in my heart, I always knew it was going to be Puya. I just knew it. I just knew it in my every fabric of being. And I just kept on looping back to Puya. I was like, yeah, but Puya's really amazing. Like, I know Puya would take this material and run with it. And eventually we got to this place where it was like, yes, let's just put out the offer to Puya and see what she says. And I was just so grateful that she received it. And then she read the script and wanted to talk to me. And we got on Skype. That's how long ago this whole situation was. We were on Skype at the time. And I was going to sort of give my spiel, sort of my speech to just try to, you know, entice her into being in my movie. And she was like, oh, I just would like to say some things about the character and what I'm seeing and the script. And she just laid out everything. She laid out the structure, and she laid out what the character was feeling, what Chris was feeling in the moment, in these particular beats, like what these beats meant to her. And I cried because I never had that experience, that sort of pure artistic translation between two people in quite that way before. And I knew then that she was absolutely the right person for the role and that she was going to just absolutely knock it out of the park. And then I had to string her along from about April of 2019 all the way till November of 2019, promising her that we were raising money and that this thing was actually going to happen. And then finally, when we got enough money where we felt confident that we could actually start filming the film in January of 2020, I called her and I said, we're going to be doing casting, a casting call for the character of Naomi, and that eventually when we got to callbacks, I would like her to fly out to Los Angeles to audition with this person just so that we can do chemistry reads and make sure that we have the right people. And in that process, the casting process is so torturous and so terrible, and you feel so bad because, these actors are putting their hearts and souls into these roles and memorizing these lines and sometimes pages and pages of dialogue. And so often in the process, they feel mistreated because people don't treat them right. People are on their phones or they're, not really paying attention to the audition. You see all these people who are around who you don't even know who they are. And it's a very alienating experience. And I just feel so bad. It's sort of a painful process for me. And I was very nervous heading into it and wanting to make a good first impression, but also wanting to do right by these people who are taking time out of their days to sit there and perform in front of us. And Lynn was the first person in, and she came in with just this warmth, this immediate warmth and kindness and camaraderie that just immediately put me at ease. And I was like, well, even beyond what this person's capable of performing, which we'll see in a second, I knew that she was just going to be somebody who I really could collaborate with. And then she knocked the audition out of the park, and she was amazing. And then we went for callbacks, and at the callbacks, we were trying to schedule it, and it turns out that the scheduling for when it was going to be happening was when Lynn was shooting another movie. And she wrote me a very heartfelt letter, basically saying, I really care about this. I would love to, go in for callbacks if the schedule permitted, but I just wanted to say how much I really cared about this role and how much I really care about this story. And I just wanted to offer my support. And that was just such a heartwarming letter to get, and rare, I think. And I knew then that she was willing to fight for it, that she really, really, really wanted this no matter what. And I saw a little bit of that in Naomi. And I felt like she, beyond obviously her performance, she could understand those parts of that character really well, and she would fight for this role and fight for this performance, and she did. And then she got into callbacks with Puya, and Puya immediately fell in love with her. And we're all like, I mean, it just that callback experience is so magical. Again, the first person in, and we just knew, and we're just so lucky to have both of them be a part of this film, you know.
And both of them were really good. It's kind of interesting. They meet in the parking lot, and you feel as an audience member the tension between them. There's like a history that's there. And then, initial like small talk, and there's something more there. I'm forgetting the moment. I know that I noticed it when it happened, where like all of a sudden, Naomi kind of dropped her guard, and they both felt that they could like start actually communicating better with each other. And I just felt that was just great acting. Great writing from the script, but also just great acting and delivering. Where okay, that's the moment where like the guard has been dropped. They can They felt each other out. Now we're gonna kind of get to learn more about them. And the other thing that was, and also like some of your like just, your costume design threw me off in a good way, meaning that when I meet Naomi, she's kind of dressed like I thought. Oh, she looks like she works in an office. Could be a banker, accountant, consultant, something like that. And then you see Chris. Chris. Could be an artist, or quite frankly, could be like a techie person, like she is. So like I was like wow, well, what do you mean Naomi and her performance, and wow, that kind of I got thrown off. So you knew something, at least from a superficial level, from my point of view, based on the costume design, something kind of changed in her where like her life didn't go that route. And I want to kind of go to the scene in the gallery near the end, because it was a really powerful scene of two people that, when I thought about it, it was like the only people that can really hurt you are the people that you love. And in that final scene, it was, they both really went after each other, and they both had legitimate grievances, and they both had correctly called out, I think, each other in terms of like where they were. Like, tell me, like actually writing that, like, I mean, it was just, I just felt that, number one, tell me everything about that scene. It must have been just difficult to write. And then also for the actresses, difficult just to perform. Like that it was like, tell me just about the creative process, and then the emotions running on set when it was actually being filmed. I mean, that scene just really blew me away.
Yeah, it's sort of for me at least, in all three stages of the process between writing and then shooting it and then editing it, I kind of had to reach a point of numbness at a certain point with the fight, because it was so caustic and so painful to listen to over and over again. In the writing process, Kristen and I had sort of always felt that it would eventually lead to this moment, that needed to happen. But a lot of it was building in that history of that fight within the earlier parts of the script, which is one of the biggest challenges, I would say, because once we got like the fight figured out, then we kind of had to like, spread the breadcrumbs throughout the rest of the film. And it was really tough, because what I ended up doing was I kind of went through, and I had like a very encyclopedic kind of brain about film and some television, but film especially, I'm very obsessed. And so I thought about every single fight that I had seen and every single movie I can imagine, and sort of basically found clips from them and then played them out all the way through, and would write them out and sort of try to understand where the peaks and the valleys were, how fights are structured, what makes a fight explosive, or where are the turning points for all these different ones, and sort of diagrammed a number of them out to try to understand the logistics of it, and then how much we can sort of invest from the earlier discussions into the fight. So a lot of the writing was kind of building that out and sort of piecing together this puzzle. And then we rehearsed it maybe, I would say, once or twice in prep, in rehearsals and in prep. But we didn't want to like overextend it or overplay it too much. We wanted to keep the emotions raw, but keep the spontaneity there and not make it feel too rote. So when we got there on the day, I think it was the first day in that location, which was our final week, and the two, I think, of the last 3 days on the shoot. So we were all very tired, and it was actually Puya's birthday on set. So so we got her cupcakes and all the stuff, and then we're like, okay, well, now we're gonna have someone yell at you for a few hours, which must have been hard. There was like a very sort of solemn feeling on set. You know, I think we all, the crew knew about the scene, and most of the crew had read the script. And so we all kind of, I think, were trying to give Lin and Puya as much space as we possibly could to allow them to perform. And really in that space, once they were in that room, it was really just either a Steadicam operator or our DP Jordan or our sound person. And we basically, it was just them in the room along with Puya and Lin. And I think that intimacy, I think, helped a lot with that moment. If everybody was in there, even in some of the closer handheld sort of shots, I think it would have just proved to be too much of a distraction. It was hard. There are times on films, particularly hard films, where it feels like a piece of your soul sort of leaves your body as you're like writing something. It's just the heaviness in your chest, almost. It's like a weight. And definitely after sort of some of the handheld takes, as we started really getting into it, into that second half of the fight, you know, when the lights really change and it gets very vivid red, it really hurt. It hurt my soul to watch the takes. And because we had, you know, Chris and I had imbued so much of ourselves into these characters and into the story, and then to have Lin and Puya take that material and shape it into something even greater, it was beautiful but very painful to watch. And there were definitely a couple of times where I sort of wandered off on set, just stared at walls in between takes, and my AD, who was also our producer, Mia Schulman, would come over and make sure I was okay. But it was just so much of it was just sort of digesting and processing it. And then once we got to the edit, then a lot of that was sort of going in and restructuring some of the fight and where some of the arguments would come in and cutting really a lot of lines to try to get down to the core of it. But even that was very difficult because playing that back over and over again, and then trying to maintain an objective point of view was challenging, but so rewarding, you know, in the end.
Yeah, give kudos to your research in terms of like looking at old films or just past films and seeing how they structured it, because I will say that it was definitely well structured with the peaks and the valleys, and it really, like, it was verbal argument for audience maybe that haven't watched the movie, but it was really like I really was like, oh my God, this is this is like this is like dropping a nuclear bomb. This is like rigidly left, from this argument. And I want to actually do a little shout out, I guess, to your DP Jordan, because since the set was like a gallery space, it was already artistically there, and then the lighting of it, and didn't necessarily have to be overly explained, like why is the lighting doing what it's doing, because you're in this like gallery space, so you have a great suspension of disbelief of what's going on. They're obviously at the end it kind of gets a little bit more exaggerated. So I want to kudos to you and definitely your DP for how it was lit, because it definitely added to the effect of it. And then after that, also, quite frankly, just as poignant, just as powerful to me was the aftermath of the argument, in terms of like where each person went in their life. And with Chris, you have this very, suburban park, I guess, feeling, but it's still like a little bit bittersweet in the end, but an understanding there. But with Naomi, that I'm not normally the biggest fan of like performance art, but it was powerful. So like, was that always in your mind, like what that piece would be, or was it something, oh, we'll figure this one out, and like like her performance at the end, like was that something you always had in mind, or like where did that come from?
Yeah, it was interesting. That was probably one of the biggest parts of the film that changed. Was originally the opening sequence was more of like a montage of these various shots that we were going to be filming, and a lot of it relied on this version of the performance that we ended up not using, which was more of like is almost more of like a body like dance almost performance sort of thing. And our performance artist consultant Laura Salmon and our creative consultant Jason Morgan sort of spent the pre-production process trying to figure out if there was like a stronger emotional motivation that we could use for Naomi in this performance and what it meant. And we kept on developing it, and we developed it with our production designer, Tom Lyman. And then really, we sort of threw out everything that we had in the script initially, and went with this completely different performance that we basically figured out about less than 24 hours before we were going to be filming. And I credit Laura and Jason a lot with that, because I think they just did an amazing job working together and collaborating, figuring out how to center the performance and to make it more emotional. And then we had the task of talking to Lynn on the day that we were filming and sort of reworking this performance and what it meant. So as soon as it really came together in that last 24 hours in a way that was completely unexpected, but I think it led to this deeper emotional tone that worked throughout it. One of the great challenges of filming that scene was we had like a hand double doing the painting for some of the scenes, and then Lynn would come in and like do some of the close-ups, and it was like painting on the fly. Like we were trying to design the performance as it was happening while we were filming, and making sure that we had like the right coverage. And for me, it was kind of fun because it fell back into like documentary filmmaking in a lot of ways. It was like picking up and capturing moments. And then we had, Naomi's kids there, which was a lot of fun. And some of my early experiences of working with kids on set, was just an experience. And, it really came together. And Lynn really, Laura, our performance artist consultant, and Lynn had met during pre-production to talk about performance art and what it meant. And I think that Lynn gained a very deep appreciation for what performance art is and what it can possess and what it can be. And I think so much of that emotion that she was able to put into it was imbued not only through the character, but also through her growth and understanding of that experience and what that meant. And she just did such an amazing job. And so did Jordan with all those handheld shots. Poor guy was insane.
Most definitely. So, what are you working on next? What's your next project that you're going to be hopefully gracing us with your presence again, and as well as your next film?
Hopefully, yes. I have a couple of scripts. There's a young adult trans love story that I really want to get off the ground sometime in the next couple of years. And then I also been working on developing this horror, like queer horror film. I really kind of like feel like I want to do something, like this film is so formal and by design, but it's very formal and structured and sort of structured after conversation films like My Dinner with Andre or Columbus, or even something like Brief Encounter. And so I kind of want to do something very different. I want to do something raw and like intense and sharp and modern. So I don't know. Hopefully one of those things will get off the ground.
Hopefully, and then hopefully we have it, because like people realize from the film, you're a good writer, you're a good director. I love that you did the research, because like I'm focused on that scene because it was just a very powerful scene and just very well done. So I am definitely looking forward to whatever you do next. And Mari, thank you for creating that film, and thanking you for letting us have it here in the film festival. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us. And also, if I could, I just want to do a shout out to some of my friends who have films in the festival. I would highly suggest everyone see My Fiona, Potato Dreams of America, The Beauty President, Keyboard Fantasies, P.S. Brenda's Letter Please, and Friend of Sophia. They're all really amazing films, and I'm sure there's way more even than that of just amazing content, and you all got to go watch as much as possible.
Well, Mari, thank you for the plug. And then for our audience, we're going to play the trailer for See You Then.
Wow, you look a little different.
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about.